Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the manipulation of housing prices and rental and home prices that's going on all across the Western world, but particularly the anglo-sphere. And particularly where you've got major cities. There are countries where, say in Germany, where there aren't the mega cities, but there are a spread of many cities of between 1 and 2 million population. So it's a slightly different sort of situation there. But certainly in the Anglo-sphere, we get the big cities of, in Canada and, New York, Los Angeles, and Sydney, Melbourne in Australia, and Auckland, New Zealand, and so on. Wherever you get these bigger cities, the pricing for real estate relative to purchasing power is about the same. In fact, it's so close as to be within 1 percentage point. Now, that can't happen in a natural sort of the cards fall where they may type market situation, where market forces of supply and demand and purchasing power and all sorts of things. People won't willingly put themselves in a position where they're having to pay 60% of their wage in rent for some shitbox 1-bedroom apartment. Market forces don't drive that. People can't really afford that. So all across the Western world for rentals and housing costs, it's clearly not market forces that are at play here. And given that London to Sydney to New York, wherever, that in purchasing power terms, it's within 1% of the same costs in every city. Again, that doesn't happen. That's being centrally planned by a central planning committee and is almost a result of actuarial mathematics. Someone somewhere, a group, I assume a cabal of bankers, has decided, okay, people are going to have to pay 60% of their wages for this standard of accommodation in, say, rent or even purchasing for that matter. So it's clearly not market forces in any description. Now they talk big and say, supply and demand, the capitalist economy, supply and demand. Yes, sure it is, you lying fucks. It's nothing of the sort. A bit like the stock market. It's the idea that it's being driven by market forces was something that is a myth from over 20 years ago. Now let's just have a look at this. So what brought me on, I've mentioned this actually in or something similar in previous videos, but what brought me on was in the area that I live in. And I try and make a point of walking as much as I can these days. And we live in an area with a lot of forests, so I get to walk through the forests, and I quite like that, and get some exercise and commune with nature, and do a bit of navel gazing, all that sort of thing. So just walking around the streets, say going to the local grocery store type thing, I noticed that around middle of November, there was a lot of properties came up for sale, and they came on quite suddenly. And within 1 or 2 days, they just appeared. And given I walk the same, well, not the same route every day, but given I was walking that route, and you don't see any for sale signs on Monday, become Tuesday, or the next day, you've suddenly there's these for sale signs all over the place. And wow, that was quick. And it struck me as odd that, and this is just, of course, the route that I walk on. Given the wider scheme of things, I'm sure there'd have been a lot more. But just in that route, there would have been easily a dozen properties all came up for sale on the same day. So I didn't really think that much about it. I thought that was a bit odd, but I didn't really think much about it. Well, they weren't next door to each other. They were 100 meters apart, or they weren't adjacent properties, or they weren't apartments in the same block or something like that. They were properties that were freestanding properties, or certainly ones that I saw at least. They were quite well spread out. So now I got onto the sort of the online real estate stuff, and there wasn't any huge uptick in properties for sale. So as in the overall amount. So somehow a whole swathe or swag of properties came on the market all at once. but yet there was nothing more than the average. You know, for example, if the average was 100 properties for sale in any given week, then there was still only 100 properties for sale. So somehow these properties, you know, again 12 plus, came on the same day, but didn't affect the total number. Now that in itself is strange. That almost looks like it's pre-arranged or pre-organised, or you know, it smacks of that. Maybe it wasn't, but it certainly suggests or implies it. Anyway, these properties were for sale since the middle of November, and as of a few days ago, none of them, not one of them, had sold, which struck me as a bit odd because it's kind of the peak season, if you like, for in this area for those sort of properties to sell. So it's in peak season, but no one's buying them. And now the prices they want seem to be a little optimistic, as far as I can tell, anyway. But hey, you know, but I didn't think much more about it. And then a couple of days ago, I'm again walking to the shop, and every single one of those properties, 12 plus, every single one of those properties had sold on the same day. Same day. They'd all sold all at once. So they appeared for sale on the same day. And then, you know, 4, 7, 8, 9 weeks later, give or take a day, 9 weeks later, they all sell on the same day. Now, I don't buy that. I don't buy that sort of, they come for sale. I mean, no way that happened. That's not natural organic market forces at work there. Far from it. So what's going on, you may ask? Now, I made a few little inquiries. So I thought, okay, think outside the box here. Maybe they sold, but the different days, but the guy who, because they usually get some sort of subcontractor, the guy who sticks up the sold sign on the for sale board, maybe that guy is the same guy that all the different real estate agencies and private people use, and he was on vacation and he came back and did it all. Maybe there was something else, not something that I would think would be a realistic or reasonable explanation, but maybe there was. So I made a few. Nothing came of it. It's I'm assured that they all came up for sale on the same day and all sold on the same day. So what exactly is going on there? Not market forces, obviously. Now, on top of that, the places that sold, say, and there's a bunch of places that sold around October. Again, similar sort of thing, all coming on at the same time or selling at the same time. So I thought, well, I'll have a little look at a few. I didn't look at all of them, but I looked at a few of them. They're still all empty. There's no one renting it. You know, if there was a buyer, no one's moved in to live in the property. So they're all empty properties. No one's living there. No one's renting it. So this is very strange. Now, these sort of things like that are just happening all the time. These odd things that just don't appear to be driven by market forces in any way. No, I'm assuming it's an offshore buyer of some sort. Maybe it's BlackRock that's coming in and buying up the whole town or something. Maybe there's something going on there, using nominees because they don't want their name used, so they'll get flunky stooge nominees to be doing the buying or pretend to be doing the buying. It's really them stumping up the coin and pulling the strings. But now coming back to this idea of a fixed price for real estate all over the Western world, or the anglo-sphere in particular. Now this is relative to purchasing power. So if it's the wages in, for example, in Australia are $200, then the rent was $120 for a particular. But if the wages are $100, instead of $200 or $100 in, I don't know, for example, London or something, then the rent is $60. But as a percentage of, in purchasing power terms, as a percentage of the wage, it's effectively exactly the same. Now, I also did another thing where I divided up the if you like, the distance from the downtown General Post Office, the downtown CBD of Sydney, then did a belt of, so going 10 kilometres out or 20 kilometres out, 30 kilometres, 100 kilometres, and did a sort of circular, because Sydney's on the coast, did a circular belt around around the city, and wherever you go within the sort of the 100 kilometre belt away from the downtown, the rent's almost exactly the same. In fact, they are not almost; they are exactly the same. A 3-bedroom house will be this. A 2-bedroom unit is that. 4-bedroom house is that. No matter where it is in that belt, whether it's on the beach at this side or not direct waterfront, that'll be different. But wherever it is. So if I go sort of 130 kilometres out. A 4-bedroom house will be $100 heading north. But if I go heading direct west, which is nowhere near the coast and is in reasonably mountainous sort of territory and not as well serviced with things like shops and that sort of thing. But if I go that same distance out going west, then that the 4-bedroom house, freestanding house, is $100, exactly the same price as it is heading north. Now, if I go south, then it also in that belt is exactly $100. Now, this can't be the case because out west there's a much smaller amount of property, with much fewer services in terms of shops and so on. Whereas if you go north, the service is quite well serviced with shops. And if you go south, where it's reasonably well served with shops and really a better public transport infrastructure, then the price still is exactly the same given the distance. So given the density of population, given the spread of the transport infrastructure and services such as shopping centres, all that sort of thing, you would see quite a variance. The distribution of schools, you would see quite a variance in the pricing, but it's not exactly the fucking same. As soon as you get in that that belt of distance there, that's it. It's $100 for that 4-bedroom property, freestanding property. If it's a 2-bedroom apartment, it's $65, and it's a $65 wherever you go in that range. Now there are a few upmarket, very desirable upmarket suburbs within that. They buck the trend. Similarly, there are a few, not many. There are a few suburbs that are well serviced with drug lords and methadone clinics and knifings and that sort of thing, and the prices are a bit cheaper there. But generally within those belts, distance belts, that is, going in a circumference, if you will, around the city, the prices are exactly the fucking same. Now, if I apply that, once you got that plotted, you then apply that to London, or you apply it to Auckland in New Zealand, or fucking Los Angeles or something, Houston, Texas. You apply that, and it pretty much holds up all the way through. There are exceptions for a super high crime pocket or a super upmarket. There are, but those are really the outliers. Effectively, it's the same in purchasing power terms. Doesn't mean the prices aren't different, but the wages are different, and then the purchasing power within that given the wage difference, then the purchasing power. You could also sort of make some odd allowances for cost. Now, the other thing was the cost of food. Now, there are countries that have to import all their food, and they've got quite expensive distribution systems and different taxation systems on food and this sort of thing. Yet the price of some chicken meat, for example, is pretty much the same in any of the cities you go to. The same for the price of eggs is pretty much the same, even though some countries are fully self-sufficient in eggs. In fact, they've got surpluses, but it's the same sort of price. Now, same goes for milk and other things, cream, butter, cheese, and so on. You effectively got an international price, even though there are vastly different situations in terms of availability of raw materials, transport, population, spread of supermarket stores, grocery stores. There's many differences that would create a different price structure, but instead the prices are exactly the same. So clearly we've got what is equivalent, if you like, a communist, centrally planned, centrally arranged, internationally coordinated by the globalist cabal. Prices we pay, they are deciding what we will pay for everything, and it's related to what they would see in actuarial mathematics our capacity to pay, and that's it. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.